Today we're going to start the process of looking at communicating with the spirit world, with animals. And it is controversial for some mediums because it's not something they've considered or even tried or even looked into. But as animal communicators, we know that our animals have a soul, and we know that they go to the spirit world just like we do. And if we're able to communicate with them in this life, there's no reason why they can't communicate in the next life. So there's a number of things that you're going to have to do to develop this, and you may already have developed it, but certainly what I'll be doing in this lesson will be giving you some more in-depth ways, perhaps some different ways rather than in-depth, and some methods that can help you develop this. Now, when the animals are in the spirit world, of course, they're not talking as we talk, because we know it's an emotional language. And I actually believe the natural language of every soul is an emotional language. It doesn't have to be verbal, even though our minds may well interpret it as verbal. So you're going to have to work on this in two ways. So we've got the two components going together. We've got the animal communication. You'll still need to do that. But we also need to do something else. And that is allow our own spiritual power and the power of intention to expand and reach out to the spirit world. We're allowing our frequency to change so that those in the higher life with a much finer frequency than we have in this life, they can somewhere meet and blend, and then we can conduct the communication. If we take our minds back to earlier in the course, we did the exercise, the lemon exercise, where you visualize seeing a lemon in great detail, cutting it, putting the lemon juice in your mouth, and you experience a whole range of ways of communication through the mind. So we've actually imagined that scenario and we've had a physical reaction. But in that you were able to see, you were able to smell, you were able to taste, and you were able to experience. For most of you who do that exercise, what happens is the mouth fills with saliva. There's a physiological reaction to a thought. And it's very interesting that this happens, but it shows the power of the mind. And we're working with the animals here and with the animals in the spirit world at the level of mind-to-mind communication. And that's why it's so important we're in touch with the emotion, because that will be translated in our minds into communication. Now, of course, the animals don't come back to just give you a lot of facts and figures and evidence that they've survived in the same way that a human spirit will, because the animals never doubted that there was an afterlife, whereas we're always doubting everything. So it's quite natural, the progression from this life to the next life with animals. So we're not trying to prove that there's life after death. We're just communicating. And of course, within that communication, you can ask all the same things that you asked for animals that are living in this world with us. But you can also ask soul questions as well. And that's a lovely way. You could even ask about what it's like in the spirit world. And I leave you to ask the questions. What is important not to do is to get carried away and say, your dog is telling me this, or your goat thinks this about your new washing machine, because they weren't interested in those things in this life. They're certainly not interested in those things in the next life. So we're working on a very pure soul connection, but there could well be evidence within that. And the evidence within that, just to reassure you that it's them, is you may, just like the lemon, you may see them. You may have a certain smell, a taste. You may even hear a sound that they make. And then you can ask the questions, and you allow your mind to unfold on an emotional level what it is they're saying by the pictures, by the sounds, by the smells, and if they have a message. And that's the important thing. What is their message? So we're going to work with this. And one of the ways we're going to work with this is I'm going to ask you to go away and sit for the communication. Pause this recording, and then after we'll follow my exercise, an audio exercise, holding the space for spirit. Now, you'll have got yourself into the state ready for animal communication, so you will be in the present moment, you'll be in the now. Then you are going to listen to holding the space for spirit. And after that, you're then going to, through the power of your intention, invite an animal from the spirit world, to come into your space. And in that space, then you will have the two-way communication. And then afterwards, write down everything that you experienced, even before you started communicating. Write down how you felt during the communication. But most importantly, write down the message of this animal. And I can't determine what it is they're going to say because it's a pure communication. But allow it to happen. Remember to say thank you to them when the time is over for the communication, and get as much information as you can. And so in the next part, I'm going to ask you to pause this recording, sit through the process for communication, and then when you feel you're in the right frame of mind, you're in the right energy to communicate from the heart, as you always do, then I am going to ask you to press play again on the recording and allow yourself to be taken through that exercise. When you've been taken through that exercise, I'll then ask you to pause the recording again and then sit with the presence and invitation for an animal, and then begin the communication. And make a note of how it makes you feel on all levels. I know I've already explained that, but also, how do you feel? How does it affect you? It can be emotional. It could be you get those goosebumps up the arm. Who knows? The main thing is you just allow it to be. And if you keep practicing this way, it won't take so long over time, but it'll get you into the habit of making a very good, clear, pure communication. And so enjoy your experience of working with a much loved animal in the spirit world.